everybody, for joining us today. And thank you, Brandon Hodde, for letting us, as always, use your music. You don't have Brandon Hodde on your playlist, please go to Spotify, click him, follow him, support him, put his music in your stories because he's amazing. Speaking of amazing music artists, I am so excited today to have CJ Kern. CJ is also one of my favorite guys. And if you follow me on Instagram, especially, but all my social media, you know that I'm a big country music fan. I love country music. It's my favorite, always has been. And I found this guy through Instagram. As you can see, he's in his car. And the reason why is because this guy is a hard worker. He works full time and he does his music. So just bear with us because the truth of the matter is I'm more impressed that he's in his car and out there actually trying to do two full-time jobs where most Americans are complaining about one, trying to get his music out there. So again, go to Spotify, find him, follow him, go on Instagram, follow him, and put his music in your stories. So having said all that, thank you, CJ, for being a supporter of Team Awesomism. We love musicians that care about their community, and we know you're one. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what got you started in music, and what you're doing right now?
Well, I picked up a guitar when I was like 13 years old, and I'm 33 now, and I just fell in love with it as a young boy, and went to a few lessons here and there, and then most of the rest of my years I self-taught. I was also in choir when I was a teenager, and so growing up, I think that kind of happened because growing up, I was always around music. My dad would sit in his office and he'd be blasting Celine Dion and Garth Brooks, and I grew up listening to Alan Jackson with my mom. Um, we were just we were very much a music family. And I actually took about a 5 year break from playing between the years of like, well, actually maybe a little bit longer, between the years of like 2015 and like 2021 maybe. Because in 2015 my ex-wife left me, and I whenever that happened, I decided I was gonna go and sell off my music stuff, and so I didn't touch a guitar for quite a few years. But I like to say that I call it the Houston Conroe Tomball Magnolia Bubble. Uh, is where I'm from because I've lived in all of those towns. I've lived in Conroe, Texas. I've lived in Houston. I've lived in Magnolia. I've lived in Tomball. Right now, we live about 45 minutes from College Station, Texas, where Texas A&M is.
Right.
That's actually where we're coming from right now. But that's kind of where I'm from and my background. In 2017, I went to the police academy to become a police officer, and so I'm still doing that to this day. That's my full-time job, and then on my time off, I try to work on this music stuff and write and practice and book shows. So
Awesome.
not much rest for the weary out here. So especially working nights.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, that's
I wouldn't
hilarious.
have it any other way.
I see, and I love that. That's one of the things I admire about you. And I did not know, to everyone listening, I did not know that he was a police officer. So thank you so much for your service. And
Yes, ma'am.
also, I know that area well, even though I live in Florida now, because we used to live in, well, our address was Conroe, but we were right there off of 242 in Harper's Preserve. So that's
Yeah,
where we lived there for
that's
12 years. Yeah. So that's, it's funny because I found you after I moved Okay, so back to this. So, but I think that's awesome that I think it's admirable that you're so committed to what you're doing, because one of the things that I appreciate about guys like you is I relay it to autism as well, because not only do I think music is extremely important for autistic adults and for myself, I've been diagnosed with ADHD and GAD, general anxiety disorder. Music helps lower my stress because, and you sing, and like with autism, if they learn the lyrics, they're learning more words, that it's training their brain and everything else. But also, I think by what you're doing, and I stand by this, people like you and Brandon Hodde and Justin Lynn Bailey and you guys that work so hard at this, you're showing that you can pursue a dream. It's not always easy, but you do what you got to do to get there. And that's something that I'm really trying to teach autistic adults. Don't look at your autism as something to hold you back. Look at it as something that you have different and is awesome about you to help you push the future. And what you're doing is you've got a full-time job, but you're also out there pushing your music career. So it's never give up. It's I'm going to pursue what I need to pursue. And that alone is worth it to me.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's the way I see it is just kind of, I have two things that I'm good. Well, I have a lot of things I'm good at, but the two of the biggest things that I'm good at and that God has blessed me with talents in is being a cop and doing music. So, I kind of look at it like, um, while I'm working on this music stuff, why not go ahead and hunt some bad guys or try to help some people? You know what I mean? I have the licenses and I have the work ethic and everything, so might as well. Um, so that's kind of where I am with it. I'm hoping that the music stuff blows up, and maybe one day then I'll be able to volunteer instead of doing it full time,
Yeah, no, I think it's phenomenal. And I mean, I like your music. I think you've got a talent. And listen, my attitude is anybody that works that hard, anybody that's that committed and is trying deserves our support. And I see so many people give up right away because things don't happen immediately. And I think by you sticking to it and trying and not giving up is reason enough for people to support you and support your music. And I first of all, I like your style of music. I really like your voice. I think you do a good job. But I also think that because you're committed the way you're committed, we need more of that. And that's part of the reason why we listen, we're particular about who we collaborate with at Team Awesomism as well, because we want people that are committed to moving things forward, not people that are about themselves, but are out there trying to really make the world a better place for other people. And I feel that about you. And that's why, too, I wanted you on as a guest, because I want everybody that hears this podcast to go and click that follow button and support you, because if we don't stick together, those of us who are willing to try to help other people and really pursue our dreams and be that kind of a model to show people that the negativity is all in your head, find the
Mhm.
positivity, then we end up lowering ourselves and everybody around us. And we need to be lifting people up, because a rising tide really does lift all ships.
Right, exactly.
And I'm sure you see people in your other job as a police officer who have given up on life.
Oh, all the time. I thought something that was kind of cool about how we kind of hooked up on social media is that I've dealt with in my 6 years of doing this, I've dealt with many instances where I've had to deal with some either autistic kids or autistic adults. Several instances where they've wandered off. Um, and there's even been instances in the past where some of these autistic kids wander off and they drown in a pond or in a reservoir or something like that. And I've dealt with those situations from the front lines. And it it's really terrible. And I think that there's a lot of people that discount what you're trying to do, and the autism awareness. I think it can really go a long way.
Thank you. We fight so hard every day because what we're trying to do is give a positive outlook on it. That's why I've always told Peyton since he was little that he had awesomism, not autism, because I wanted him to look at it as a superpower. Because I've always told him that God made him the awesome one and the rest of us are the same, because I knew society was going to be down on him enough. But at the same time, we try to take a realistic approach of, we know everything's not awesome. We know that there's a lot of, hardships. There's a lot of, frustrations. There's a lot of negativity that comes. And that's why we try really hard also, because I look at some groups and every single thing they talk about, everything they talk about is autism related. I try to show, look, Peyton is an autistic adult. He has music he loves. He listens to music all the time. Okay. He has different hobbies he likes. He loves sports. He likes to go to sporting events. He watches sports. He goes to the grocery store. He goes to the coffee shop. It's a lifestyle. Autism doesn't come and go. It's not there today and gone tomorrow, and you turn 21 and it's gone. So every other part of society needs to also be included into the autism, which is why my stories are about all these other topics, because when you understand that autism is a lifestyle, you realize that every single other person who maybe isn't directly involved with autism has a role to play in helping autistic adults and kids.
Mm-hmm.
We focus on adults because they're the ones being left behind. And so, here's the thing. Autistic adults have a 75 to 85% unemployment rate. Okay. Let's just say that somebody watches this podcast, an autistic adult. They listen to your music, they fall in love with it, they really get into your music. The next thing you know, they teach themselves how to play an instrument, and then all of a sudden they reach out to you and you've gotten bigger and you have this band, and the next thing you know, that autistic is playing in your band because you inspired them, because they saw how hard you worked, and they realized that if they work that hard, they can get to that point. And the next thing you know, you're in a complete different world. When Luke Combs first started, he legitimately used to respond to me on social media because I was one of his few fans. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Look at him now.
Yeah.
All it took is people started listening, and all of a sudden now he's massive. He literally used to respond to me and it was him, because nobody cared who he was. He was just starting out. And the guy is phenomenal, and he does so much for other people and everything else. I've seen him give tickets to autistic, adults that have said, my brother's autistic, he'd really like to come to your show. Okay, I'll put 2 at will call, and this is why I believe so much in you guys, because I think too, you're such inspirations for these autistic adults. And you know what? If an autistic adult says, I'm going to pick up a guitar, I listen to these guys' music, I love what they're doing, I'm going to pick up a guitar, you don't know where that leads. Maybe it's just them playing in front of their church on Sunday morning, and the whole church stands up and claps for them, and they suddenly realize that they really are awesome because they have a talent that nobody realized they had.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely agree with that.
That's why we try to inspire every day. And that's why we try to bring people in that we feel like are the epitome of inspiration. And that's why I wanted you on. That's why I was bugging you to come on, because I know you were so busy and you're like, I can't then, and I can't. And I was so persistent because I see you as an inspiration, and I didn't even know you were a police officer. My husband and I are addicted to OP Live. Like, we watch that all the time. And we tweet out every Friday and Saturday night during OP Live, because I'm always saying, man, these police officers have way more patience than I do. I would be losing my mind with half these people. But I also think too that there's a guy by the name of Tom Island, and he's an autistic adult. He's a phenomenal human being. And I have the honor of meeting him at when we were all in Dubai at ICANN Dubai, which is an autism conference. And he was also a guest on my podcast. He trains police departments how to deal with autistics. And
Oh,
I
that's
think
awesome.
yeah, it is, because I had a police officer where I live now in Florida, because I used to live here, so I know a lot of people here. I came back here, and I had a police officer here tell me that he said, Lynn, it would break your heart if you knew how many times we get a phone call because they're trying to tell us, somebody says, we think somebody's really on drugs or has serious mental health issues because they're sitting in a, like a coffee shop, and they're kind of going like this or whatever because they're getting stressed and they're autistic. And he said, we walk up and he said, we've been trained to recognize that that's autism. So we then talk to them, and we then try to, talk to people around them, because there's a very big difference between somebody that could harm somebody or an autistic just sitting there, maybe getting a little stressed or going into their own little world and kind of, doing this. And I said, well, thank you, because there is nothing more humiliating to these autistics than to be misrepresented and treated as if they have serious issues instead of that they're autistic. So every time a police officer, a fireman, an EMT says to me, we work with autism, or we're trying, or I had a fireman actually come and follow me on Instagram one time. Oh, he still follows me. And he said to me, he came in my DMs and said, I'm following you because I want to learn things, because if I ever go to a house fire and there's an autistic, I want to know how to react, because I don't want to react improperly. Him saying that to me, even though I'm not trained to teach him that, on a scale of 1 to 10 was a 400. I literally sat there, read it like 5 times with tears in my eyes. And I was like, thank God for this guy, because he cares.
Absolutely. For sure.
Because there's certain characteristics and there's certain things, and the more we talk about it and the more we show it's a lifestyle and the more that people hear, I feel very strongly that we can help lower that 75 to 85% unemployment rate. We can help them because they have a high suicide rate. They have a very high homeless rate. We can lower all those things down because truthfully, they all work together. If they feel better about themselves, they're not as apt to commit suicide. If they have a job, they're not as apt to be homeless. All those things work together. And this is why we're building our app, because we want to build a community of people like you and Brandon Hodde and others who support the community, the autism community, bring everybody together who isn't necessarily just connected to autism, but have it so that other people go, I want to be a part of that community. These are cool people. These are people who support helping other people.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's a lack of that in the world.
People very rarely will step up and help other people. And that's why when you see the positive and you see the good stories, you want to share them. And that's why we're Team Awesomism, because we're really trying to share the awesome stories. And it's not always about autism. It can just be people being good human beings to other human beings, because when you do that, it ends up becoming kind of almost like, I think honest, good people then tend to reflect instead of deflect it off. And they go, you know what, maybe I should be a little kinder.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So did you, what made you decide to be a police officer?
I grew up around it. I think that I don't think it's something that I could have ran from. Just because my mom was a paramedic, my dad was a firefighter. I had several relatives that were cops. The the story that stuck with me mostly through my life was my great uncle was a police officer in Sugar Land, Texas,
Mhm.
and he was killed July 4th, 1986 or 7. I'm not sure which one. And so I grew up around it so much, and I like to say that red and blue lights are in my blood. I mean, like I said, I don't think I could have gotten away from it. Um, but I set out originally because I mean, I wanted to change the world. I really did when I first started, and then I very quickly learned that that was that was a heavy burden to try to carry on my shoulders, and so you know, it's been challenging, but I'm very much have the belief that um it doesn't matter how little the conversation is or what it's about or as cops when we talk to people when we're out in public or we talk to people on a call, you know, every day that we go out there we have the opportunity to make a change in the world, however little or however big it might be. And so that's just kind of what drives me. Um, I don't care whether it's the smallest minuscule change that I could have. At least it's something. At least I'm doing something. I'm not going to sit at home and complain about the world unless, if I'm not willing to go out and do something about it. Because there's too many of those kind of people that want to sit at home and complain about things and not be a part of the solution. And I've told people like that. I've told people that before. It's like I've even been on calls where I've been like, people are complaining about the way I'm doing my job. I'm like, oh, well, you don't like how I'm doing it, or you don't like how we're doing this, then why don't you sign up to join?
Mhm.
Be a part of the solution instead of griping about it. That's kind of a that's kind of where my backbone is on the whole thing. But
No, and
that's pretty much
that's
it.
right.
That's
I
pretty
agree
much
with
it.
you. Listen, I see it every day, all day, up and down the street on social media. People
Hmm.
complain and people have all the solutions while they're sitting on social media, right?
Hmm.
To everything that should happen. Yet 90% of them don't even get up off their chair to go change to help a neighbor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I agree with you. I've had people say to me, well, I don't think you should promote it as awesomism. It's all negative, blah, blah, blah. And I go, well, then you know what? Go put your own out there. You go get the people who agree with you and who like your approach to it, and you help them, and I'll help the people who like my approach to it, and I'll help them. I mean,
Hmm.
here's a little known fact about me. Most people don't know this about me unless you really know me. I was in politics for many years. Okay. So I was in the beast of the belly. Okay. I literally lived in DC.
Hmm.
And I became into politics years ago. I was a homeschool activist for many years because I homeschooled all my kids. And it was
Hmm.
before my kids are your age. In fact, I have two kids older than you. And I was homeschooling when people were threatening me on the sidewalk to have me arrested for homeschooling. Okay. And I would always say the same thing. Please, I hope you do, because then I can go ahead and get a public, you know, sound box to be able to talk about why I homeschool.
Hmm.
But, I fought for that. And, I would have people say to me, well, I don't like this and I don't like that. And the school's doing this and the school's doing that. And I would say, did you go? Did you speak to the teachers? Did you speak to the principal? Did you talk to anybody? What did you do to make a change? Well, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, then don't come and rant, rave, and scream and holler at us if you're not going to do anything. You know,
Hmm.
if you find a politician that you like or you respect, give them 1 hour of your time, donate your time. As somebody who did all volunteer and grassroots for many candidates, I would have given anything to have 100 more people every campaign give me an hour of their time. So go.
Hmm.
And it's the same thing with, what's going on with police officers. Well, they're all, dirty. They're all this. There is nothing that angers me more than when people use that all. That's why every so often I put out on social media, be very careful painting with a broad brush because you might just paint yourself.
Hmm. Oh yeah. It's it's lost in translation. The bad apples ruin it for the best of us. And of course the media doesn't help at all. The way that the media creates this perception of police officers in society with the bad things that happen, you know, that has to be one of the worst things, is that society recognizes all of these bad things that happen with cops, but everybody forgets behind the scenes about all the good things that cops are doing, or the fact of the people will give us a hard time because we arrested somebody that had marijuana and a gun or something. And it's like, hey, look, what you don't realize is I was telling somebody this recently, but and we don't have to get on the marijuana topic at all, but people don't realize the gun violence that happens behind the scenes over marijuana sales. And so people will gripe about somebody getting arrested for having marijuana and a gun, but what they don't realize is that, hey, the way that I see it is that I'm taking an illicit substance off of the street, and I'm also taking a gun off of the street, and I possibly could have saved somebody's life by doing that. It could be this person that I'm arresting, or it could be somebody else. Who knows what happened? I mean, I've experienced it, I've been around it. I lived in apartments before where there was a shooting in the building next to mine, and it was a marijuana ripoff deal.
Mhm.
Um, and it's very frustrating, you know, just the way things go with this cop stuff. It is so irritating. And which I'm not gonna sit here and say that I don't complain about stuff, because I do, just as much as the next person, but I go out there and I try to change it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
And
So
that's all you can do. Well, it's funny because when my kids were younger, when I lived here in Florida, and they would ride their bikes, and we had a law that the kids had to have a helmet on, right? Okay, and they had to have it strapped. And the suburb that I lived in, which is where I live now, the police officers would pull up to them if they, my kids would ride, typical, teenagers with before they had their, 16, with their helmet straps hanging down. And one time, one of them gave my son a ticket because he had seen him multiple times, right? And my son came home and he was mad. And I said, well, and he said, yeah. And he told me to tell you because he doesn't write the laws. The people you work for write the laws. He's just enforcing them. And I just started to laugh because I thought he's exactly right. My kids are mad at
Mhm.
the police officer who is enforcing the law that my boss wrote. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like he was like, and I just remember, and I told the police chief in the suburb that we live now that story, and he laughed so hard, and he goes, that was actually great that he said that. He goes, do you remember who it was? I said, no, he's probably by now retired because it's like 20 some years ago. But I said, my son
Mhm.
came home and said, Mom, he said I'm mad at the wrong person. And I said, well, technically he's not wrong because he didn't write that law. He's just enforcing the law. And
Mhm.
this is what I always try to tell people too. You don't like that the police officer is enforcing the law. Well, talk to your state senator, talk to your state rep, talk to your, they're the ones who are writing the laws. They're the ones who
Mhm.
are enforcing it. They're
Mhm.
just enforcing it. This is why we have all the different branches of government. But
Yeah.
because we don't teach civics anymore, people just think, like the police officer gets up in the morning and goes, okay, well, I've decided I'm going to arrest somebody for this. Because if they do that, that's going to get thrown out in court and they're going to be investigated because they broke the law. And
Mhm.
it also goes back to, I don't care where you work, what you do for a living, I don't care what your religion, your skin tone, anything is. There are bad people in everything and there are great people in everything. The great
Oh, for
way,
sure.
way outweigh the bad. The problem is all we do is look at the bad. Okay. That's all we do because that's what the media has Pablo's dog trained us. That person's bad.
Oh, yeah.
You can have 100 police officers standing in line to do something good to help somebody. 3 bad apples over here, and everybody's going to focus on those 3 instead of those hundreds that put their life at risk to save somebody.
Yep, absolutely. It's so frustrating.
It is. And, friends of mine who are police officers have said to me multiple times when I've gotten, on my high horse about why I don't agree with them doing this or that, they've said the same thing. We dislike them more than you do because they put shame on our badge more so than it put shame on you. And, you need to stop just bright. And I'm like, you're right. Because when I say, well, they're bad because of this or something I read on social media and I get angry about it, I have to stop myself and say, that's one person. I need to judge that one person. Just like I don't want to be judged by, you live in this neighborhood. Okay, everybody in that neighborhood is this. That doesn't mean I am. Stop doing that.
hmm Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, I think what you're doing is great. I really support your music. I really appreciate you coming on. And, we'll, as soon as you get your stuff recorded, please make sure you get it to us so that we can put it on some of our videos and
Absolutely.
stuff.
hmm
And you're welcome on anytime. And if you want me to share anything on social media, please just let me know because I'm always willing. And when we get the app, which will be out soon, I'm super excited. On April 2nd, this podcast will actually be aired after April 2nd, but on April 2nd, we're doing a coffee and we're going to show all of the pictures of what our app is going to look like, the wireframes of it, and we've got a new logo coming. Its logo is phenomenal. And we're just got so much coming up. And, we have t-shirts that we sell that say fight for a cause, not for applause. And I just think somebody like you really fits that. And I'm really trying to surround Team Awesomism with people who fight for causes, not for applause, because there's enough glory hounds out there. There's enough people, I love Shaquille O'Neal. I'm a big fan of Shaquille, and I saw Shaquille do things during a lot of like the unrest and everything that I thought were phenomenal. Instead of standing up and shooting his mouth off, he went and formed community groups to talk
hmm
in communities, brought the police in because
Yeah.
he's actually, a cop. And
hmm
he did things, and he did the same thing when all that hubbub happened with that guy that ran that pizza company, and Shaquille stepped in and said, let's just change the way this pizza company is run. Let's change
hmm
the way people do things. And I think we need more of that and less of the standing on your soapbox, pounding your chest saying, look at me, look at me, look at me.
hmm
Because look, I will tell you this. I am thankful every single day that I can lay my head down and know that I live in America, even though we have a lot of problems, and I can be an entrepreneur. My son, who is autistic, can be an entrepreneur. There are people out there on the streets at night like you, guarding and keeping me safe. We have our military, we have our veterans, we have so many people that are doing good things. And I fear if we don't start coming together and stop trying to focus on what divides us instead of what unites us, I fear for this country. I fear for my children, but I am deathly afraid for Peyton because as an autistic, he can't always fight back. I don't just mean
hmm
physically, I mean emotionally, mentally, verbally. And
Right.
I am going to try to make Team Awesomism as strong of a team with the people who do care and do try to change it, be it through music, be it through, being a dentist, through being an insurance salesman that tries to help. I don't care what you do. You can do something to make life a little bit better for somebody else.
hmm
And I just think that Team Awesomism, that's what our goal is. I mean, one of the kindest things we had happen to us for Team Awesomism was one day, a gentleman, I really didn't even know his first name. Just he followed me. He's a barbecue guy. Never really said much to me. I would always like his stuff, and he sent me a whole bunch of money. Like, I'm talking a lot. He went out and made sure that people understood, found my cause, and supported it and sent me that money. Never said a
Mm-hmm.
word to me. Okay? Just send it to me. That touched me so much because I sat there and said, this is a guy who really is fighting for the cause, not for the applause. Because I said to him, I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about it. He said, no, please don't. I didn't do it because I want attention. I did it because I believe autistics deserve the support.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why guys like you and Brandon letting us use your music means everything to us. Because if we couldn't, when we're doing videos or for our virtual academy or for our podcast, we couldn't have your music, it wouldn't be anywhere near as good. And it means more to us than you realize. And that's why I want you on, because I want everybody to know who you are. I want to help promote you because you do. And now that I found out you're a police officer, it's even more so. I know you fight for a cause and not for applause. And I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that a lot. I
I
do.
just hope that it's kind of my prayer every time, um every time before I get up to play. I always hit my knees every time, because I just hope that the words in some of my songs would just touch somebody, because that's the bottom line, is that I hope that my music and music in general can just help somebody the way that it's helped me, and that's just what I want to share with everybody. So,
And you know what? And I'm sure it will. I'm
mhm,
serious. I'm sure it will because it comes from your heart.
mhm,
Again, when you are driven by a cause, be it even if for 10 minutes somebody listens to your music and their stress level goes down, you've now helped
yeah,
that person.
yeah, it's a change, no matter how big or how small. It's something. So,
Yeah, no, and I appreciate everything you do, and we're always here. Team Awesomism is always here to help you, and we appreciate everything you do for us. And I can't wait till some of your recordings come out because then I can really share them. I hate only having the one right now that I can get. And so I hate that. I like that I can keep, that I'll be able to, because
mhm,
I'll be honest with you, Brandon doesn't even know this. I sometimes look down the list of his songs and then think of something to put in my story so I can add that song to it so I can help promote him again, you know?
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'll do the same thing with you. I'll be like, okay, this song, all right, I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to put this picture on there. I'll put something cool on it, and then I'll put it out
mhm,
there.
yeah,
We'll hear it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You have
So,
to get a. I've learned recently about getting more creative with my social media stuff. So it yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate your help.
no, no, and again, oh, you also said A&M. My husband's an Aggie. That's where he
Oh,
got his master's degree. Yeah, you
that's
guys
awesome.
undergraduate at University of Montana and got his master's at A&M. So we actually took Peyton out there. I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but Texas A&M has one of the best autism programs in the country.
Oh wow, I did
Mhm.
not know that.
Yep, they are miles ahead of a lot of the other universities for autistics, and it is just amazing. That when we went there, I was just blown away by what they do to help autistics. And that's phenomenal because a lot of them don't, like Peyton didn't, he wanted to do online classes, not go to college because he didn't want to be overwhelmed.
Hmm.
And Peyton, Peyton builds the websites. He edits, like he'll edit this podcast. He does all that. He adds the music. He does everything. Peyton is super good. Peyton's more shy. So Peyton likes to kind of just sit and, do graphic design and web design and everything.
Hmm.
So, but are your shirts out yet?
They're not. I'm still taking pre-orders for those. They're $35, I believe. Um, but I need to get some more orders in so that I can get those ordered. But they'll be coming soon.
I'll order
So
one. I'll definitely order one.
okay.
I bought one from Brandon and I wear it a lot, and people
Hmm.
will be like, who's that? Like I literally have people say to me, who is that? And then I tell them about it and they'll be like, oh, I have to look them up. And I've literally had people like take a picture of the name,
Hmm.
so that they can go to, and one guy was standing right in front of me, literally looked on Spotify. He goes, is that him? I go, yeah. He pushes follow and goes, I'm going to put him on my playlist just because I had the shirt on and I told him, about him. So I'll
Yeah.
definitely get one of
Yeah.
your shirts. I'll definitely buy
Yeah.
one.
And
And anybody who's
I'm gonna design some more clothing to kind of go with my album release, and I want to do some clothing that's like kind of themed for some of the songs, if that makes sense. So we'll be looking out for those too.
100%, and anybody who's listening to this podcast, please go and order from him too, because, I mean, he is a small business. Whether people realize it or not, musicians are small businesses. They work just like a small business. They're out there every day trying to do something. So,
Yes,
support
ma'am.
them. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for
Ma'am.
doing this podcast.
Yes, ma'am. My pleasure. My pleasure. It's been awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. If we can ever help you in any way, please let us know. I'm serious.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.